Alright guys, I'm back today with an updated version of the Megatron deck that we tried to do a building the deck on. We found that when we played it, we built the deck to play towards General Megatron's flip, trying to deal damage for weapons in play. But we found that we were not having enough weapons, and we played too heavily into Hunker Down, and having multiple armors was not good enough. And a lot of times they couldn't get an armor off of Megatron. So the Hunker Downs are a flip here to not deal any damage because there weren't or they would deal 1 damage and not put an armor back on him. So it's kind of awkward. So we've retooled the deck. So now we are all ranged: General Megatron, Barrage, and Dead End. We're all Decepticons, so we can play Swindled still. And we are mostly blue, but there are a few orange cards. So the plus side to Dead End, he does have Tough 1, which is kind of odd. And when you flip him, if you need to flip him, you get to draw a card. So he does not flip back from Hunker Down. It's only a 10-centric thing, but we have some other things to generate value with the guys flipping. So we've added some more weapons. We've taken some of the other cards out. And we'll get into that right now. So we're going to get this one right out of the way. We have Handheld Blaster because we're a blue deck. It's not good. We don't want to play it. But we do want it in our deck to flip it. That's it. It is a weapon, so in a pinch, you can put it on a guy. You can then flip Megatron for an additional damage. You know, it's not great, but that's where it is. So it's just a necessity for a blue deck. So the weapons that we have, we're going to start here. I'm going to start with attack drones. So I'm not a huge fan of this card, but it seems to work very well in this deck. You also have a whole bunch of situational cards like your Handheld Blaster that are bad if they're in your hand. They're only good in your deck, that you can just easily trade out for an attack drone. Also being able to play multiple attack drones without having to play something like Swindled is pretty decent for his flip. You put 2 attack drones on him, he's at 9, and in his other mode he goes to 7. 5 plus 2 is 7, and he'll deal 2. So another thing that's also good with that, it actually is able for a way for Dead End to deal some damage. Same with Barrage. The plus 1 seems very innocuous, and it is, but we're playing this so we can hopefully suit up Megatron, and his flip will be at least 3 damage or more. So that's the reason we've went to this card. Since we are a ranged package, we are playing Armed Hovercraft. Can go on everybody that we have and deals 1 damage across the board. So that 1 damage also doesn't seem that great, but what it does do is if you put it on a Barrage, you deal 1 to everybody. He's procced and ready to go. He has Bold 2. Now, we are on an orange deck, so it's not going to necessarily equate to a bunch more damage, but you'll see that there are a bunch of green cards in the deck, so we get to look at more cards, and basically him having Bold is an extension of our hand and giving us more options. There are a few oranges, so that Bold 2 maybe helps us, and we can flip for an extra 1 damage, stuff like that. It also allows you to get into spots where if you nearly kill somebody, you have this, hopefully take their guys out. Since we're all Decepticons, we have 2 Scoundrels Blaster. You probably hardly ever want to put it on Megatron since you're trying to set him up with attack drones, but sometimes it will go on Megatron. And if not, you generally want it on these guys, but sometimes that's not an option, but it can go on everybody. And it's green against Autobots, Pierce 2. It may or may not matter, especially in the blue mirrors. It'll matter against the orange matches. It won't matter, but it is a plus 2 attack, so the Pierce is pretty irrelevant. We have a Singleton Energon Axe here. And we have a singleton enforcement batons as our weapons. You know, axe is just great. You're going to be taking plenty of attacks and hopefully surviving. So the axe will be ready to go for you. And enforcement batons is just a great weapon to be able to stymie your opponent's aggression. The thing is, this deck isn't going to be trading each attack for a character, so their weapons staying in play mean they're going to untap with their weapons and attack again. So this card is actually better in a blue shell because you're not just going to kill the character to kill the upgrade. This you actually need to play to kill their upgrade because you probably will not kill their character. So then we have a few armors. We have a singleton bashing shield because it's bashing shield. Playing 2 rapid ascents. I know this card also looks kind of odd, and I'll agree that it is. It's an orange armor, but it gives +1 attack. +1 defense. And when you put it on a ranged character, which is any of them, your opponent discards a card. So that's not necessarily going to be detrimental to them, but you have to realize that we have some things to move our equipment around, our upgrades around, and bringing this back with Hunker Down, we get a go up to 4 defense in tank mode, and they discard a card. So not only have we hopefully dealt damage with Megatron's flip, we've also made them lose a card and went up a defense. So we're not relying on any tough armors at all in this deck, so we're just going with static buffs. To round those out, we have 2 Reflex Circuits for range characters. All range, they get it. It's green, you know. And when you defend against a melee, which is pretty much all of the bugs except for Ransack in bot mode, and it's good against all of the other orange decks, like the Grimlock decks, the Lionizer decks. Most all those guys are melee as well. So then it's a +2 against them. Then we had to put some utilities in to be able to hopefully have this proc, which is at the beginning of your turn if you have 3 or more upgrades. If Megatron has 3 or more upgrades, you have to deal 1 damage to each enemy. This also works if he has 2 attack drones and an armor. So he doesn't have to have 1 of each. He just has to have a total of 3 upgrades on him at the start of your turn. But able to possibly help that, we had to play some utilities. So we're playing an energy pack. Energy pack can only go on Megatron for an additional +4 health, making him even more difficult to kill, as well as hopefully making him deal more damage. And we are playing 2 Gyro Blasters as well. So this is another reason that we're not trying to play any tough armors. We're trying to use this, and since we really don't have any bold strategies aside from Barrage, and it's not really even a strategy to deal damage, it's a strategy to look at more cards. This is basically, we are blue, we're static damage. What we have in play is pretty much the damage we're going to deal. So this is just a +1 out of the utility. So it's almost like you can have a double weapon on any character if you want to keep them from taking a huge hit. Since we do, I think there's 21 upgrades here. So we are also trying to play them out very quickly. So we're going to play Swindled. Trying to get them into play as quickly as possible, especially if they're multiple weapons. That way Megatron's flip is more pertinent, more detrimental for our opponents, the more weapons that we can get in play. So that's what Swindled's there for. We need to also find them, draw cards. So we're playing a treasure hunt. Over half of our deck, more than half of our deck is upgrades. So treasure hunt should always be hitting something for you. So we also are going to get into why we can flip dead end in this. We can flip all of our characters, but there's also times where you don't need to flip. Barrage, having him being able to flip back into alt mode, giving a guy Pierce on top of maybe having an Energon Axe is going to be relevant. So we're playing Hunker Down. Megatron is our only tank, but the amount of value that you're going to gain from this card, whether it's the direct damage, it's going to be the direct damage from Megatron plus getting an armor onto him plus your upgrade for the turn. It's just too good to pass up. And since we're trying to build this deck to focus on Megatron's alt flip, we're also playing with rollouts. So not only can it work with Megatron, it will also let you draw a card with Dead End, and then you can flip him right back so he's in the mode that he wants to be in when you're defending. So generally your turn 1 will be flip Megatron here, turn 2 you can flip Dead End, draw a card, roll out, flip them both back. Hopefully there's a weapon in play for him to deal at least 1 damage, and you've gone up a card, and hopefully you've milled an armor. So you're up 3 cards at that point. Then we also have Checkpoint. It's a great card, but it's not at its best in this matchup unless you can have a swindled turn before this. You want to try and empty your hand of upgrades and try and strip your opponents of theirs. And it's really only good against orange decks. It's not as good against the blue decks. So it's not something that we're going to lean on here, especially since more than half the deck is upgrades. So it's not as strong of a play in this deck, but it is a double blue pip, so it's an auto include. We're all ranged, so we have some direct damage here. We have 3 marksmanships. Just basically in this deck, it's a blue plasma burst. There is a slight downside. You can only target something in bot mode, but that doesn't happen that often. It happens against Sentinels, which is not really a pertinent part of the metagame right now. And it can happen against cars. It can happen against Shockwave, where you don't want to actually target one of their other characters. You want to target Shockwave, but he has already flipped. So it's just a timing thing. You just have to deal with it. We're playing a Callous Leadership, so we can keep General Megatron alive as long as possible to just be able to shift damage around from him. We're playing the Smelt as our upgrade removal option since it's green and blue. And then we're playing this Fun of Quartermaster to be able to move all of our upgrades around. Not all of them, but one at a time. So it also works with the armors, Bastion Shields, and Rapid Ascent to being able to get additional triggers. It also works with Armed Hovercraft. And, it works with enforcement batons. So you can also save a character. Like if you have a Reflex Circuits on Barrage and you know he's going to die this one turn, you can save the armor and just put it over to Megatron or Dead End or whoever you need it to do. So, and then for our sideboard, we have kind of a spicy one. I was trying to stay with a ranged package, and I wanted to go to a 2-tall variant. So we can't play Nemesis since he's melee. So our character of choice is going to be Ion Storm. He's got very similar stats to Nemesis for 12 stars. 7 attack in both modes. He does have less health, but he has an additional armor in both modes. Well, he has 1 less here. So here he's just like Nemesis with 2 less health. But in this mode where he's going to be the majority of the time, he has 1 additional armor and he's ranged. And on the off chance that you need to flip him, then he becomes a debilitating crystal. So here's where Swindle is going to shine even more. You're probably not going to be flipping as much. You're just going to be trying to deal as much damage with your 7 base attack guys. So for the sideboard, we're going to round out our Energon axes, go up to 3 for when we side into 2 tall. Also, we have 2-pronged attack. So when we go into this configuration, we have a tank to discard 2 more cards, or if we need it to, it does Nemesis flip 2 damage to a character of their choice, and it is orange. So we also have 1 hiding spot, which is not for this configuration, but if you're going to stay in the 3-wide configuration, we have to play the full set of infiltrates because press the advantage. All of our guys are purple, and press the advantage is good against purple guys. So, I mean, you just have to play it. And then if we're also going to stay in the 3-wide setup, we have 2 laser cutlasses for additional ways to deal damage in blue mirrors. So if you put this on Barrage and you flip him back, he's going to have Pierce 5. He has 4 attack. So you're going to lose out on a Pierce. But if you put him on him in his alt mode, he'll go to 4 attack with Pierce 3. So, and the same thing with Dead End. Dead End will just always be at 3 attack, Pierce 3, and if he flips, he's 4 attack, Pierce 3. So it's just a way to guarantee damage for the blue mirrors. So if you guys have any better suggestions for a sideboard range character, maybe there's a 10 or an 11 star that I've forgotten that is a Decepticon, and then we can probably play a star card, maybe like a recon system, something like that. Let me know in the comments.